It's the Grottu Orloff Show, episode number 21. It's November 4th, 2020. And I'm up here again in the incredible movie theater room. This is the Princess Theater, named after a beloved cat that I adopted back in 2006, and she passed away 2 years ago, almost to the date. Thought I'd talk to you about what's going on in the world. There's really no telling what's going to happen over the next few days or months. It looks like this, as far as the election going on between Trump and Biden, it looks like it may wind up in the courts. Regardless, if you live in a large city, you need to be careful. There's going to be there's going to be uprisings and ridiculous stuff happening. What I like to do is on YouTube, there's a guy, he calls himself Blazing Press Channel. Look him up. What he'll do just about every night is he'll have a bank of screens, and you can watch it on your television. And he has all the different cities, and he has live feeds of all the riots going on and all the craziness. And he's like a real nice guy, very religious. He usually ends his news updates every night with a prayer, or he always does. But he's very conservative, and he's a good guy to follow. To keep up with news that's not censored, you may want to get an account on something called Parler. Parler. It's not spelled correctly like the word parlor, but you go on there and you can get an account, and that's where you get the real news. It's like uncensored. It's not. There's no censoring like there is on Twitter and YouTube and all the other social media. What's going on is China, over the last couple of decades, has pretty much bought our country. We're in massive debt to them. They own AMC movie studios. They own Columbia Pictures, Sony. There's so much stuff they own. And I don't even know what all they own. I think a lot of people are in debt to them, or are in their pocket. Almost all the media is. Biden has gotten millions, if not billions, from the Chinese. And but what he did is he didn't get it directly from the Chinese. It's called plausible deniability. His son got the money and then gave him a percentage of it. So you've got to be aware that this is going on. And so the Chinese want Biden in. It's the Chinese people are wonderful. I love the Chinese people. We're talking about the communist Chinese government. They will keep prisoners alive just so they can remove organs, and they'll take them from prisoners. They'll remove their organs and sell them. They'll put people in prison that are for political reasons or for religious reasons. And right now, religion, I haven't been to church in a long time, but I need to start. because right now, you know, it's perfectly okay to go to Walmart and it's okay to go to the mall, but you don't go to church. That's a bad thing. Russia's not our enemy right now. China is. China, the Chinese government, not the Chinese people. China, kung fu movies, Bruce Lee, wonderful people, beautiful, intelligent people, great culture, great food. We're talking about the communist Chinese government. There are people in China. On that Parlor network, there's a guy named, I think his name is Lude, Lude. Look him up, subscribe to him. They're trying to overthrow their own government. What happens is the Chinese get these politicians and people lured in, and then they have something on them, like film of them doing bad things. They're bribed. This is a scary time. It looks like there's half and half, maybe more than a 50% chance that Biden could get in, because people don't pay attention to the news. They think, well, Trump is just a bad man. Trump is he just doesn't like people. He's mean. He does mean things on his Twitter. Trump's lied about a lot. You need to look into it. It's like, well, he said bad things about this race and that race. It's all lies. Everyone I know that's my wife is half Hispanic. She loves Trump. I talk to all the look. It's just not true. Biden is the guy. It just seems so obvious to me. But you know, it's one of those things. You've got to be aware of what's happening around you, and you've got to vote, and you can't be a fool. Well, that's good. Look at that. This is a magnifying glass I bought so I can read, and then it has LED lights. I showed you this before. It's really cool, but it can also provide good lighting for the purposes of one of these incredible YouTube videos. Oh, that's not good. Let's see. If I can hold it back over here. Ooh, maybe I can create a halo effect. My wife said when she first met me, and when she first saw me for the first time, she could see a glow around me, like an aura, that I was like angelic. And that's amazing. My wife prayed that she could just meet someone, just maybe even just as a friend. She needed someone in her life. She was at a low point, and then the next day I contacted her through Facebook. It's like, and started talking to her, and then we met a week or two later. She lived all the way down in Houston, and so that's one. Sometimes great things can happen through social media, but mostly social media is a fricked up thing. By the way, those of you that I talk to a lot, that are regular viewers of the Grottu Orloff program, if you want to befriend me on Facebook, Grottu Orloff, go ahead and do that. Grottu Orloff Facebook. Just send me a message saying you're a YouTube follower. You can get me on Instagram and Parlor. I just joined that. What else do I do oh, other people to get good news from? There's a guy named Salty Cracker that's just like a crazy. He's like a comedic voice for the news, but he'll let you know all the bullshit that's going on. He's a good guy. Look up Salty Cracker. Look up Blazing Press. Who else would be good for you to look up? As far as comic book news, there's Captain Strangelife's the original guy. Go to find Captain Strangelife. Silver Age Dave. There's the comic Crypt of Castle Hills out of San Antonio. There's Metarog. And then what you can do is just find those people. There's the King of Comicdom, but he hasn't done much lately. But find them and then look at who comments below their videos and then go to them, and you may find people with very similar interest in comics to you. I'm a little strange, because I collected comics starting right at the dawn of the 1970s. So I love that era, and I love the era of my older brothers right before me from the 60s, and I love the era of the 50s and 40s and all that, although I can't really afford those comics. But I am a comic book collector. Yeah, I guess about the time I was in college in the 80s, I kind of got disenchanted with what they were doing when Spider-Man started wearing the black suit. To me, that was like the new Coke. If you don't know what I'm talking about, for a while, Coke decided, we're going to change the flavor of Coca-Cola. And it's like, you can't get the old Coke anymore, so people started stockpiling Coca-Cola. And it was a new flavor. It was not exactly like the Coca-Cola you're used to. It was called New Coke. And so many people complained that they finally brought the original Coca-Cola formula back, and then they called it Coke Classic. And then for a long time, you had to tell, if in a restaurant, you had to tell them, I want the original, I want Coke Classic, not the New Coke. And then after a while, they stopped making the New Coke, so Coke became Coke again. But even the Coke that we get here in the United States doesn't really taste right. You've got to get, I don't know if it's available in your market, wherever you're at, but they sell it in bottles, and it's Coke imported from Mexico, and they still make it with real, like, cane sugar. They don't use aspartame or NutraSweet, or anyway, they don't use, I know it's those are old names. I think they call it high fructose corn syrup, which does horrible things to you. They don't use the fake stuff. They use real, and it tastes like Coke used to taste back several generations back when it was Coke. And Dr. Pepper, they have Dr. Pepper, that's the new thing. They say this is the original flavor. It has real sugar in it. You see it at the supermarket. They have Dr. Pepper, they have Mountain Dew and Pepsi, and it's supposed to taste like it did back in the 60s, 70s, 60s before, but the Dr. Pepper still doesn't taste quite right, even in those new bottles. It's supposed to, when they use the old logo with 10, 2, and 4, because on the Dr. Pepper bottle, they used to have a round clock face, and it had 10, 2, and 4, and the advice was that you should drink a Dr. Pepper at 10, 2 in the afternoon, and 4 in the afternoon, and that'll keep you going through the day. You drink 3 Dr. Peppers a day at 10, 2, and 4. It's like a doctor's prescription. Dr. Pepper was a surgeon in the Civil War. He opened a drugstore in rural Retreat, Virginia, came up with that drink. A guy that worked for him moved to Waco, Texas, and named this, and he started selling this drink, and he named it after Dr. Pepper back in Virginia. That Dr. Pepper, his grave is in either in rural Retreat or Withville, Virginia, in that southwestern part of Virginia. If I can finagle it, I'm going to sell this house and buy a giant house built 20, 30 years before the Civil War that's about a football field, maybe not even that much away from where that original drugstore was. It had a fire, it was demolished, but there's at least a few people in that little small community that want to rebuild that drugstore. And if I move to that community, I'll be one of them. But we'll have to see. It's a city where there's no crime. City, it's not a city, it's a town. There's no crime there. It's I need to escape. I need to go somewhere where there's just not all of this nonsense. Um, I yesterday, every 2 weeks, there's a shopping cart from a supermarket called Kroger, which is a mile from here, and it winds up in my side yard. There's an apartment complex back behind me. They built this nice neighborhood that I live in the 60s, and all these people moved in. I talked to an old lady, old lady that used to walk up and down the street. She always carried a stick. She's a nice lady. She was the original occupant of the house since it was built, and I would walk my dog Daisy, and I would talk with her, and she said, well, we bought our house, and then they built that apartment complex after. They tricked them. It's really not good to live right near an apartment complex. Anyway, someone that must not have a car pushes a shopping cart, and the wheels are supposed to lock up and not allow you to leave the parking lot. That's bullshit. It doesn't happen. This guy pushes the shopping cart all the way down and then unloads it in his apartment, then pushes it into my side yard every 2 weeks like clockwork. So what I do is I'll push it back onto just a few feet onto the apartment property. But the last time it happened, I went over and talked to the actual renting agent there in the little office, and I said, well, this is happening. She says, I pretty much know who that is. This is like a young guy is doing it for his grandmother. And she says, well, I just take those carts and I throw them in the dumpster because it looks ghetto, And so, see, I wouldn't use the word ghetto. That's kind of... Anyway, so I said, well, those are, I talked to the people at Kroger. Those things are worth several $100s. You might want to call them and tell them. And then she said, okay. So anyway, so I guess she never talked. She says, I'll talk with him because I don't want... She must not have ever talked to him because it was, again, yesterday in my yard. So I went over there and talked to them again and said, hey, it's back in my yard again. Some guy said, yeah, I've been taking some of them back to Kroger. Some guy he might be the maintenance man. But, it happens all the time. The whole pandemic, it's been happening. And then before, occasionally it would happen. And then I was at Kroger yesterday stocking up for the apocalypse, and they said we don't go pick up the shopping carts anymore. And I'm thinking, well, so anyway, it stayed there. And then they took it finally, probably threw it in the dumpster. Anyway, scum. So I had a point with this. Anyway, apartment complex. Yeah, I don't want to live near an apartment complex. I want to live in a place with history. This town I live in has no history. In the 1960s, they destroyed all the historical buildings downtown. They just demolished them. There's hardly any original downtown anymore because it was old. And what happened is this town, they brought in a General Motors plant. They brought in Six Flags Over Texas, and then it's like, we need to make everything all updated and bright and shiny new. And now they got the giant Cowboy Stadium here, and then they tried to make a downtown. They try to make new buildings that look old to try to give it a feel like it's a real town, but it's shit. And at least this community around where I'm at voted for the correct candidate. But and a lot of bad things happening. Sean Connery passed away. Diana Rigg like a month or so ago. Did you ever watch this show? They started filming it in color with the second season, even though hardly anybody had color televisions then. But they were smart enough to realize that if we want this show to be a viable product that we can continue selling in the future. Let's film it in color because that's where everything's going. So I think the first season's in black and white. They had a different Lois Lane. Actually, it was better. Um, Noelle Neal had played Lois Lane. She replaced the original Lois Lane. Noelle Neal was the second Lois Lane in the TV show, but she'd also played Lois Lane in a previous movie serial, but not with George Reeves, different Superman. Anyway, it wasn't her fault. She's okay, but I mean, it was just the way that the director told the actors to act. She acted like she was like a 13-year-old. Gee whiz, gosh golly, you know, and she just didn't seem like a smart, intelligent woman. And Jimmy Olsen was a little bit like that too. I just wish they'd upped the ante with the, made them seem a little more intelligent. But it was a show just aimed at kids, so I guess they didn't care. It was a great show. I'm not knocking George Reeves' Superman. I'm just saying, she could be a little annoying. Not as much as Jay North in Dennis the Menace. He was, oh God, I can't tell you how much I hate Jay North in the Dennis the Menace TV show. Let's see, what are some other TV shows that you hate, that everyone else loves? Let me see. I was up at Cosmic Comics. There was a guy in there wanting to sell some comics to the owner, and he said, well, I'll just take them on consignment. I'll put them up on the wall and see if they sell. He thought they were real valuable. One was a Saved by the Bell comic book, and the other one was I guess it was Marvel Team Up, when Spider-Man teamed up with the not ready for primetime players from Saturday Night Live. And that was, I bought that issue off the rack when it was new. Hey there, Alan. I bought that when it was new, but that was Alan, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't make many appearances. He's a cat my wife rescued from the backyard. She named him after G.G. Allen, which I'm not a fan of G.G. Allen, but it's all right. I was making an incredible point when I got distracted. Let's think. What was it? I'm just actually killing time. Kind of nervous. I'm very nervous about the election. So I thought I'll just spend some time with my friends out there in YouTube land. I was talking about TV shows I dislike. That guy brought in these two comic books, and that comic's okay. Where Spider-Man's there with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, but the owner was telling this kid, it's like, Saturday Night Live was great back then, but have you watched it lately? And it's just terrible. And this kid was saying, well, there's sometimes one good skit that'll redeem it, but that's in 1 out of every 9 episodes. It's like, why the fuck do you spend your Saturday nights watching that week after week to know that 1 out of 9 episodes is good? Don't you learn? Saturday Night Live was good in the first few years because Lorne Michaels stole the writers and the actors from the National Lampoon Radio Hour. He got Michael O'Donoghue, the big writer from National Lampoon magazine that was writing for the radio hour. They're around 74, 73, 74. And John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd wasn't on that. John Belushi, Christopher Guest, who's a brilliant comedian. He wasn't on the first Saturday Night Live cast, but he came later in the 80s. But he's brilliant. He was one of the best. But they got John Belushi, they got Bill Murray, They got Gilda Radner. Most of the cast came from the National Lampoon Radio Hour, and the other ones came from like Second City in Canada. I think Dan Aykroyd was Canadian, but they had that great sense of humor. They brought the National Lampoon and they had it live on television, and it became an event. It's like Saturday night, that's where you should be. Like in the 50s when Sid Caesar had Your Show of Shows, it was the same thing. It was event television. And it was before you really had VCRs. You had to be there on Saturday night or you'd be left out Monday at work or on the playground at school when everyone's just reciting the skits that they'd memorized. It was brilliant. Unfortunately, my mom, the first few years, Saturday Night Live wouldn't let me stay up that late. I had a 9 o'clock, I think later a 10 o'clock bedtime. All through, my mom was really strict about that. So, anyway, but I would, then they started running reruns in prime time, and I remember I bought the record album of Saturday Night Live, and I became a huge fan and saw all of them, and oh, that brings me to something. Animal House. My wife doesn't like that movie. It's brilliant. I love this movie. They could never make that movie today. That was the only movie that really was a National Lampoon movie that was written by National Lampoon people. Well, Vacation, the first Vacation, was written by a National Lampoon guy, but not one of the better ones. Chevy Chase, oh yeah, he was also on the National Lampoon Radio Hour. How did I forget him? But he only stayed for, I think, one season. Then left to make terrible movies like Foul Play. That was his first movie. They tried to make him a matinee idol. Okay, so how the mighty fade. Steven Spielberg was like the greatest. Jaws, Summer '75. Wow, it was like this new filmmaker. Then Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And then it's like, this guy's great. He can do no wrong. And then it was so exciting. He's making a movie with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. It's set in World War II. How could things go wrong? It's right after Animal House. You figure this is going to be like Animal House in World War II. And it's called 1941. And it has a great movie poster. I love the art of the movie poster. The John Williams music is brilliant. And the movie just isn't funny at all. I think there's maybe one laugh when John Belushi opens a Coke bottle by smashing it on his cockpit window. That's the only, and tries to light a cigar. That's about the only time I laughed. It was a terrible movie. And I thought, what happened to Steven Spielberg? He redeemed himself with E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark for sure. And then he'd sink down again. And it's like, okay, so Steven Spielberg was like, and then George Lucas with the prequels, like what happened to him? American Graffiti was brilliant. And then Star Wars, and it's like, wow, how do these people just tank? Francis Ford Coppola went from making the Godfather movies to just making, no one cares anymore. I don't even think, maybe he's just retired now. And these great actors like Robert De Niro turn into these ridiculous libtard shells of what they once were. It's like, I don't know. It's like some people you have a certain amount of talent, some people more so than others that you're born with, and then it just, like, once you use it up, it's gone. I mean, how is Paul McCartney, who was a great songwriter, I mean, the Beatles, how did he turn out that horrible Christmas song? Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Terrible song. And every year they play that moronic song. It's like it's some Christmas standard. But, yeah, something happened to him, because after, like, the Band on the Run album, after the Live and Let Die theme song, he just never produced anything of any consequence. Ebony and Ivory, come on. So, John Lennon continued to produce pretty good songs, but it's just like you needed, John Lennon needed Paul McCartney, because Paul McCartney had this, oh, everything's great, and then John Lennon had the cynical edge, and when they combined their songwriting talents, it made it better. So it's like Paul McCartney would be something like, it's getting better all the time, it's getting better all the time. And then John Lennon would put in, it can't get much worse. So you get the little cynical counterpoint to the song that would have just been, it's getting better all the time, or silly love song, yeah, baby. You know, you get the negativity in there, just, it helps it. So sometimes you need, a force needs a counter force. Perhaps that's the way it is in politics. But if Biden does become the new emperor, and is able to do everything that he talks about wanting to do, the Republicans need to be there to as a counterbalance. And if it gets bad enough, then hopefully the House of Representatives in the next election will flip. So you have the Senate and the House Republican, Supreme Court mostly conservative, and then that will negate the power of an insane, well, it would be Kamala Harris, because Biden's not going to last more than maybe 6 months. I'd be amazed if he lasts 6 months as president, because he is so doddering, and I don't think he's going to make it. And Kamala Harris is a straight up 100% communist. And I've had the people I've met like her, I've had bosses like her. She just seems like the most horrible, horrible person. And if she becomes president of the United States, we darn sure need to make sure that the House and Senate are controlled by the opposition to minimize potential damage that may never get undone. But anyway, we're living through an attempted coup d'etat. And we'll get through it. The United States has gone through worse, but this is not a good time for our country, and hopefully it'll all work out okay. But in the meantime, watch Sean Connery James Bond movies. My advice to you. And remember a great human being. And don't walk around staring at your cell phone all the time. My eyes are getting fricked up, and I don't know if it's from staring at all that blue light all the time, but I gotta stop it. It's this LED light, it's this just be strong. And someday, Grottu's going to get some big giant mansion. And those of you that become friends here through YouTube, or if you want to befriend me on Facebook, maybe you guys can come out and hang out. For right now, I think I'm going to go see what's going on in the news. But I appreciate you spending some time with me, because I just kind of didn't want to be alone. I think my wife's still asleep. I just wanted someone to talk to, and you are my, if you're watching this 34 minutes and 11 seconds into this video, then I must not be that horrible to you, and I consider you a friend. And maybe some of you I've met, some of you I haven't. You're just a friend I haven't met yet. And feel free to talk to me down below in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed to me, subscribe and smash the like button, and then like the smash button, and hit the ringing bell, and all the little doodads you can hit all of them. I have 103 subscribers. Oh, this is the 100th anniversary. This is my celebration video. Now, I'll make that the next one. This is just a rant, just me talking. The next time we'll have a party to celebrate that I actually got over 100 subscribers and then I didn't dip back down below. Because once I got to 103 and it stayed stable for several days, I figure it's not going to go back too much. So that's a hell of a milestone to get to 100 subscribers. And let's see how long it takes to get up higher. I really am looking forward to... I just enjoy doing this YouTube stuff, and I hope I'm not too obnoxious. And I will see you soon. Take care.